Hi, we're Maddie and Nico, and we are turning this empty cargo van into this tiny home on wheels. We have no building experience, but we'll take you along each step as we transform our 2020 Ford Transit van. This week, we're framing out our walls.
What's up, YouTube? Today we are prepping our walls to be framed, and what I mean by that is we are putting Rivnuts in. So a Rivnut is something that can go in a pre-existing hole in your van, like so. And then you use a special tool to crush it, and basically it stays there, and then you have threads that you can bolt right into. So that's where we're gonna put our framing. You can use plus nuts, you can use Rivnuts, you can also use self-tapping screws. We chose Rivnuts because they seemed strong enough and a bit cheaper than a plus nut. So that's why we chose it. You do need a special tool. Looks like this. We got it off Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. So if you need one, go check it out. Here's a quick example. I've got my Rivnut on, and pro tip when using this, when you screw your Rivnut down, you want to have the arms open so you can crush them down. So it's on there, you stick it in the hole, you squeeze the levers together, you release, and then you want to screw it down a little more so it's tight again. Crush it as hard as you can, and then unscrew this. Now you're left with threads in your wall.
Most of the factory holes in the Ford Transit are a size M6, but there are a few M8s. At this point in your van build process, you should have an idea of your layout to decide where the framing should go. Heavy items, like cabinets, will use the framing to anchor into the van. You also want to think about where your water and electrical components will go, so you can use the framing to secure those as well. In our build, we knew we wanted upper cabinets, a fixed bed in the back, and 2 kitchen galleys on either side in the front. For this reason, we plan to have 2 horizontal boards up high, 1 horizontal board below the van cavities, and many vertical boards in between.
Hi guys, today I am working on the van by myself. Well, not entirely alone, my dad is here, but Nico has COVID, so he is just at home resting, and obviously he can't be around us. So yeah, today we're gonna start installing our furring strips. We've already added some of our Rivnuts into the van.
To install the furring strips, we first measured the length of the space where the boards would be installed. My dad and I started in the back of the van and cut 2 1x4s to the correct height. Then we cut the head off a bolt of the same size as our Rivnuts and filed it down to a point in order to mark where to drill holes in the wood board. You can also just buy threaded rods if you don't want to modify a bolt. We started off with just 1 bolt for marking, but found that having multiple is much more practical. After slapping the board against the bolts, we began to drill holes, double checking that our drill bit was the right size to fit our bolts. Then we used a drill press to countersink the holes so the bolt heads would be nice and flush. We checked that all of the holes lined up before moving on to cutting the Easy Cool, which purpose is to prevent the transfer of heat between our furring strips and the metal of the van. We made sure to have this barrier between each board and the bare metal. Next, we punctured the Easy Cool and applied Loctite to our bolts before screwing them in with a torque drill. You will want a low torque setting to make sure you don't over-tighten the bolts, which can cause the Rivnuts to spin. You can also tighten the bolts by hand, just to be careful. When we moved on to the horizontal boards, we used a pocket hole jig so that we can attach the boards to not only the van, but to the vertical beams as well. This provides a little extra support, but you may want to think about how you'll be routing your wires so you can leave space for them if necessary. Once we started getting into the flow of things, we added Easy Cool with glue or tape ahead of time before attaching the furring strips. Sometimes when we marked where holes should be, the bolts would be slightly unaligned. To help with this, we would move the drill around in a circular motion to widen the holes slightly, allowing for a better fit. On this board, you can see that we left room for the factory wires at the far side of the furring strip instead of using pocket holes to attach it to the vertical board. It is held in place by just the Rivnuts, which should be plenty secure.
You just got to fill this one piece here, and as you can see, it only has 1 mounting place. So I did some pocket holes on the side of it, and it's just gonna screw right in here. So should be nice and steady. So today we've been focusing on putting our low E in. We're still waiting on some metric bolts to come in. I don't know why they're so hard to find, but we ordered them off Amazon. So we've just been putting up low E.
We are putting our little bolts that we cut the heads off of into the holes.
Okay, now that they're in, we're gonna take our board and line it up. Okay, now we're gonna hit it. And now we have markings for where we need to drill. Put some Loctite on these bolts before they go in. So now we're trying to get this board lined up, but there's this curve, so we need to cut the edge of this at a curve. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna take this board and kind of line it up where we want it to go, or at least how far we want it to go, which is about there. This is gonna be our place marker. I'm gonna have you mark that right underneath. Okay. Our board's basically gonna be up on this line. So I'm just measuring to the center of this, so then I can come down here and mark on the line, and I'll mark it. So this should be the center of the hole where the board will rest. And then I'm gonna use this fun tool. I don't know what it's called. You can get curves with this tool. For this tool, you need a reference. So our reference is this. So I'm gonna take the edge of it and line it up with the middle. And then I'm gonna press it up. So now I have this curve. I'm gonna come down to our board and line the edge up with the middle of the dot. And just draw that. So now we have part of it. I'm gonna reset my tool. I already marked where that first curve ended, and I want to go get the middle point so I have the back side of it to reference this curve down here. And I'm just gonna line the middle of this up with the end of my first line. It fits the first curve. And there's my curve. Boom. All right, so we are routing our factory wiring along this groove up top, and there's a couple points where it has to cross over, and here's one of them. I don't really want it sitting on an edge like this, and I suppose I could just sand it down, but kind of want something more gradual. We've got this multi-tool because we didn't cut it beforehand. I'll run like that. And lastly, we just got to put a board here, and that finishes out our top framing.
Okay, so I've cut a bunch of pieces about 18 inches to fit between this board and the floor. They will run all along the floor side of our walls. So now I just need to add pocket screws and screw them in.
Here's what the finished wall framing looks like in our van. In upcoming videos, we'll add more framing to our bed bump outs and ceiling. Hi guys, welcome to the lesson learned section of our video. This is where we go over what worked, what didn't work, and any lessons we learned along the way. Without further ado, Nico's gonna start us off.
So first we're gonna start off by telling you the materials we used. We just used pine furring strips. We picked them up down at a hardware store, and we used both a 1x4 and a 1x6. The reason we used 1x6 up there is because that's where a lot of the weight from our upper cabinets are kind of resting.
It has to do with having a little bit more surface area, so when you screw in your upper cabinets, you don't have to be as precise because there is a little bit more surface area there. If you are already precise with exactly how big your cabinets are going to be, which is not a bad thing to do, you can use a 1x4 if necessary. But anyways, we went with the 1x6 up there just because we thought it didn't hurt.
And it did not. Our cabinets are still hanging.
Have yet to fall down.
And we have not had a problem yet.
The next thing I just wanted to reiterate from this video is to make sure you know where your wires are going to be run. We did have to come back after the fact and kind of cut some new channels through our framing for our wires to run because I didn't really give it that much thought before we started our framing. So with that in mind, although it does help to have your boards butt up against each other with pocket hole screws for added strength, if you just have boards connected to your walls via the Rivnuts, it should be fine and it should hold just fine because it is thoroughly attached to the van that way. Just keep that in mind. Leave a couple areas where wires can run behind your walls. It's not the end of the world if you don't leave that space. You just might have to get a little bit more creative with how you're running your wires. But it is something to keep in mind, so it's not too early to start planning your electrical, which I know is a big step for many people in their van build.
It sure is. I did show you a little 3D model of our van that I mocked up. I would highly recommend doing something like that. It doesn't have to be computer software, it could just be a drawing.
Or cardboard.
Or cardboard, but have a clear idea of what your van is going to look like at this point, because having that 3D model, we pretty much referenced that the whole build. That 3D model pretty much looks like our van, so it's a great idea to just start now, think about what you want, have an idea in your head of what you're doing.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to give it a like down below and a comment and subscribe to our channel. We will be coming out with new videos every maybe other Sunday. It just depends. Life's happening. And comment below happy birthday to Nico because today is his B-day.